Welcome back um, to Arms Spread Wide. You know me, Ramon. Hi. Anyway, I know I've been gone for a while. We are kind of going into a rebrand. I'll explain that another time. But we are going to be renaming things. But anyway, I don't have a really clear title to say. I know I'll probably write it in the description, or the title. But I'm just gonna get into it. We're not gonna do a whole lot of Bible reading. I'm just gonna try and break it down for you. But I think it's important. So John 15 and John 16. So you can. This is what I'm reading out of, and you can read this for yourself. So in John 15, this is Jesus talking about being the true vine, but he's also talking about the world's hatred. And so when he talks about the world's hatred, he's talking about basically the world hates me, and so if they hate you, just remember they hated me first. And so if but only if they're only going to hate you as long as you belong to me. And he was even saying that it hates you because you do not belong to it. The world hates you because you do not belong to it, but it hates you even more so that you belong to him specifically. um and what's it called, and he even says that, like, their biggest sin is not believing in him. That's their biggest sin. That's what they're guilty of. And the reason how he breaks it down is that they're guilty of that sin, um, is because he did signs and wonders. He did miraculous things in the world. And because he did signs and wonders, miraculous things in the world, they have proof that he is God. And so their choice to not believe him makes them guilty based off of the fact that he has already proven to them, at those people at those time, that he is God. Um, but I want to go further, and this goes into he talks about it in chapter 15, where he says, "But I will send you the Advocate, the Spirit of Truth. He will come to you from the Father and will testify all about me." Okay, and then if we go into chapter 16, he says, "But now I am going away to the one who sent me, and not one of you is asking where I'm going. Instead, you grieve because of what I've told you. But in fact, it is best for you that I go away, because if I don't, the advocate won't come. If I do go away, then I will send him to you, and when he comes, he will convict the world of its sin, and of God's righteousness, and of the coming judgment." So God was breaking this down to me, right? The Holy Spirit lives inside of us, right? And because the Holy Spirit lives inside of us, there is a convicting spirit inside of us that we show to each other. Now, obviously, you only have the Holy Spirit if you've gotten saved, right? You don't just have the Spirit of Holy Spirit. You have to have the baptism of the Holy Spirit, right? Which isn't physical baptism. It's not water baptism. Catholics. Anyway, you still are you can still have the Holy Spirit just by receiving the Holy Spirit off of words, believing and saying it, believing it with your mouth. You can receive the Holy Spirit. You don't need to do some works. You don't need to do works to receive the Holy Spirit. The reason I say this is because there's Jesus. He appears as God physically, and then he leaves us. He sets the example of how we're supposed to live, and then he leaves us and lets the Holy Spirit then convict us, right? I believe that it still kind of works that way. Because that's good. The Bible never tells us to represent the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit represents us. Anyway, so I believe that when it comes to being a light and we're supposed to represent Christ, you are to walk into some people's lives, act like Christ, love like Christ, and then leave. Because I believe that they do not get the Spirit that convicts them. You can be trying your best to tell them what's wrong and tell them and try and keep them accountable. And I believe that there is a spirit that is sent of conviction when you separate yourself, after all that you have done. When you separate yourself, then there's a spirit that is sent to really convict them. I I mean, I'll talk about, like, I had a friend, and she is amazing, and there was a lot of things at the time that I was just doing wrong. And there's a lot of things that are just like, it's just, it was like I was just making a bad decision. It, not to say I was hurting her or anything like that, but she was my close friend, so she was trying to make sure that it's like, why are you still doing this? You don't have to do this anymore. Stop doing that. And I heard her, and I heard those words and all those different stuff, and I still continued down and made some pretty bad decisions. But I remember when I had to be removed from the place that we were both at, and we weren't as close anymore or anything like that. There was this peaceful spirit, and I would even have visions and dreams, and God would speak to me, and through her, through visions and dreams. And it wasn't always a specific directions, but it was like a convicting peace to make the right decisions. And so it was as if her spirit was sent. There was a spirit that was directed by God that was sent after our separation as friends. And so even this has happened with other people where I've been that person. I keep them accountable and all that different stuff, but they don't really understand. And then there's that convicting spirit once I leave. There's this fire. I mean, I have a friend that she was in a messed up situation. I tried to just be with her as much as possible and all that different stuff, and she just wasn't that strong in her faith either. And I just couldn't handle being around it all. And then once I left, I remember the next time that we had like connected, or like after a year, she was more on fire for God than I was, but her situation didn't even change. So there was this spirit that was like sent, this advocate, this spirit of truth that is just, it can't be, you can't be there while it's working, because number one, it likes to do things itself. It wants all the credit for that, for what happens. And number two, with you not being there, there's an intimacy that's created between the Holy Spirit and the one that it's convicting. And so it's really amazing to see. But I have started to understand that just do all that you can do and then leave the rest up to God. At times, that is not just simply, you don't need to give them advice. Sometimes it means to leave their life, to separate yourself so that a spirit could be sent into their life. God gets all the credit for this. Yeah. And it's that's really what I just wanted to say. That there's a spirit on the inside of you, that you lay the example. You may just sow a seed into their life, and then you leave so that a spirit, an advocate, can be sent into their life with you never seeing it, so that you don't get the credit. And so that's really all I just wanted to say. That's it. Is sometimes you have to let people go, and you have to back up from them. You have to back away so that God, that the Holy Spirit, who you do not need to represent, because he is the representer. He represents you, your advocate. He's like your lawyer. He's going to do the work. And that's as simple as it gets. Yeah, that's all. I love you. And be patient. Be patient. And you don't necessarily have to be patient for them while being in their life. And that's all. Anyway, this is Arms Spread Wide. Goodbye.